Her fam, what's going on? Joe Hinton here, as always.
Hey y'all, it's your girl Candace. What's up?
What's up? What's up? So, how you doing? How you feeling nowadays?
I'm good. I'm excited to shoot. Like,
Yeah,
we took a week break and
yeah,
I'm just glad to be back and,
yeah.
talk and engage with people and yeah, I
Good.
missed it.
Yeah, it's been a lot going on. We have a lot of personal things going on.
Yeah.
Good, a
Yes.
lot of good, fun personal things. But
Yeah.
also, we all have our challenges and our trials and things that we have to manage and all of that. So, between all the positives
Mm.
and all the things that we all have to juggle.
Yeah,
Uh,
life and
yeah,
you
life.
know,
Yeah,
and also needing rest.
yeah,
Like it's good to take a moment to just stop for a second.
yeah. Even if it's involuntary. We took a little week break. Well, I started to say hopefully you didn't miss us, but we hope you did actually.
Yes, we want you to miss
Oh
us for
yeah, hopefully you
sure.
missed us. All
We
right.
missed you guys.
Oh yeah, man. Oh yeah. Um, with lifing, I feel like, over the last couple of weeks, personally, and as I've engaged other people, I don't know, it just feels like a little bit of something is in the air. It just feels like an interesting season of time. And I don't know about you, but I've been feeling like in a lot of the exchanges I've been having with people, it seems like a time to where, it might be a little bit of a trying time for people,
Mm,
and people are juggling some of the things that come along with life, some of the hurdles and the challenges and things like that, and trying to manage through those things. And it seems like there's a lot of people hunkering down because they're in the midst of things they're having to manage, or they feel things coming on the horizon.
mm,
And I
mhm,
know I'm personally have my set of things that I've been managing and juggling and things of the sort
mhm.
that come along with life. And there are some seasons that feel like it's just a trying season. It's just a challenging season. And so it's been making me think about how we manage through that when life presents things in the form of obstacles or oppositions or
Mhm.
even all out offenses that seem to come up against like your mission, your vision, your purpose, and things that you are just inspired towards, and you feel like you're moving and you're being progressive towards, and then suddenly you have this season of just obstacles or oppositions or even all out offenses that arise in your life.
Mhm.
And I know when those things hit, you can often ask yourself, like, what's going on? Like,
Mhm.
where did this come from?
Yeah, yeah.
Why am I going through this? Like,
Mhm.
what is the purpose of this?
Mhm.
Especially if it feels like it's kind of blindsiding you
Mhm.
and coming out of nowhere. And it's especially hits different when it's on the heels of a season that may have felt like a good season,
Yeah.
or you've been on a good run, and then suddenly something pops up. You're like, man, what is going on?
Yeah.
That
Mhm.
type of thing. So that deep question of why am I going through this, what's really could be considered a trial,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
a trial or a tribulation.
Mhm.
And they often come in the form of obstacles or opposition
Yeah.
or even all out offenses.
Mhm.
And I just wanted to talk about that, like how we manage through it, what we learn, what's even the purpose for them
Mhm.
at times. I know in my life, when I look back, retrospectively, um, that term's come up a lot, retrospect,
Yeah.
being able to look back. There has been seasons while I was going through the midst of something. I picked up on, oh, although this is unpleasant, I see the purpose of this.
Mhm.
But of course, there are those times where you had to go through a storm or a trial, and then once you got on the other side of it, you could look back and say, oh, okay, I kind of see the purpose of that, right?
Mhm.
But I know I can surely empathize being in that place where you're just kind of confused, like,
Yeah.
why am I going through this,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So I want to talk through these things obstacles, and then oppositions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then offense. The reason why I think those three things came to mind is because, and I want to get your opinion about it too. I look at obstacles or things that just come up in life and it's just a challenge. It may be just a natural occurrence, maybe something you just didn't anticipate.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really something orchestrated circumstantially or by a person or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just you're trying to be missional and achieve a thing or be purposeful. And then you just run into an unexpected obstacle.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on the, you know, severity of that obstacle, some can be small and some can be challenging to overcome. So now you're burdened with trying to figure out how to overcome this,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's natural. It's kind of part of life.
Yeah.
But then you have oppositions.
Mm-hmm.
Oppositions are things that are all out like threats to your purpose
Mm-hmm.
and your mission and things that you are inspired to achieve and to execute.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something that is opposing to what you're setting out to do.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to contend with that for a window and a season of time. And you have to have like the endurance and the courage and the faith and all the stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And figure out whatever it is you need to do to overcome that opposition.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be a bit of a warfare time period, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, all that type of thing.
Yeah.
But then you have offenses. Offenses are like another level of opposition to where there are like severe assaults that come against you and your purpose. And often it gets to the level of offense when it actually affects you in a deep way.
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes even easier for something to get on the level of offense when it comes from an intimate place,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
It could be, you know, people that you're intimately in relationship with,
Mm-hmm.
or you're in an environment that is in an intimate place, like, you know, your workplace, or I don't know, your church,
Mm-hmm.
or some type of social or civic organization you're involved in. It could
Yeah.
be a next door neighbor. I mean, because this person is so close,
Mm-hmm.
or something you're very involved in. If you're involved in an organization, it could be a family member, you know, because they're so intimately connected to things that are dear to you,
Mm-hmm.
and they do something assaulting to you, you know, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, then it can really get to the level of offense, right?
Yeah.
And how we navigate that in context to remaining missional and remaining just prosperous towards our mission. And I wanted to talk through managing through these things, and then even the things that we draw from them, the positive and the negatives, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I guess let's start with obstacles. You know, how do you interpret obstacles, and how do you normally deal with that? How do you deal with even kind of just being blindsided by an obstacle and just staying on track?
Yeah. So I look at obstacles as things that impede your vision. You know, there are things, like you said, that can come up and be things that are unexpected that you now find yourself having to maneuver around or overcome in some way,
Hmm.
you know? So I'm actually thinking about this. You know, there's a scripture that talks about like running the race that's set before you, right? So you have this goal that you're trying to get to, you're trying to reach for the mark of the high prize of your calling, right? You're trying to get to this place of purpose and fulfilling what you believe God created you to do. And as you're running along this race, the obstacles are things that are set in front of you that you have to figure out how to overcome, so that you can continue your race, right? Um, and I think the interesting thing about obstacles is, you know, for me personally, I feel like whenever I have a sense of vision from God, it usually comes in a time of consecration and a time of prayer. The vision can seem very clear at times. You can kind of see the direction you want to go, and I also feel like you can get almost like an aerial view. like this big picture panoramic view of what it is that you where it is that you're trying to go, what it is that you're trying to achieve. Maybe it's something that you need to grow in. Maybe you're hearing that you need to grow in your love or grow in your discipline or grow in your maturity or, whatever it is. And having a sense of, okay, this is my goal. This is the thing I'm trying to work on to get to the place of evolving and becoming exactly who it is that God has created me to be. And, the obstacles that I think can come up are things that absolutely challenge you and really kind of test you,
Mhm.
And whether or not you're going to continue on or whether or not you're just going to give up and just go backwards
Yeah.
and not even continue to try anymore.
Yeah, when you mentioned the bird's eye view, like this 50,000-foot view, the
Yeah.
picture that came in my mind is the fact that, well, you can't see the obstacles. You
Right.
kind of can more clearly say, oh, I need to get from point A to point B. It's
Exactly.
almost like when you first look at Google Earth or
Exactly.
if you first put it into Google Maps, you
Right.
just see this point A to point B.
Right.
But once you start, it zooms in and gives a more granular view of all the different turns and the terrain and all that type of thing.
Yeah.
So now you have to face that.
Mhm.
And, depending on what pops up as an obstacle, it can be kind of daunting, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And it is a test on whether or not you truly have the determination to get to that end point that you desire and get from point A to point B or achieve what it is. Because I think, really nothing in life that has any value comes with just absolute ease.
Yeah. Mm-mm.
And I think the obstacles are just a part of the journey. And actually, the more we become just ready and almost battle tested for those obstacles, the stronger we become.
Right.
I'll contextualize this even when it pertains to work.
Mm-hmm.
There are times where, there are some work environments that people can seem to get kicks and throwing you into the messes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know it can be very frustrating. Like, oh man, I'm getting thrown into an absolute mess, a dumpster fire, while other people seem to be like set up for success and given the easy roads and things like that.
Yeah.
And that could actually be true. But there are some rewards to being thrown in the messes, because if you can do all the work and the due diligence it takes to clean up messes and untangle spaghettis, right? Well, it teaches you all of the easy path, right? And the challenges, and it makes you learn all the ins and outs of a particular thing or a particular area. And I actually think going through all the hard obstacles of a subject matter then can make you the subject matter expert.
Yes.
Because you can tell every person like, oh, this is where a hurdle or a roadblock, or if you make this, it's going to create this here and these challenges there. So the path you really want to take is this here and here. And it teaches you all the dark crevices and little corners and footholds and things that's within a process or within any scope of work, right? And so now, you having gone through those obstacles and overcame it now empowers you to walk in a higher level of leadership. And it's a matter of perspective. But the thing that's going to be the differential is the test of walking through it. Right?
Exactly.
And you have to have the fortification on the inside and the endurance to be able to walk through it and survive, right?
Absolutely.
And even if you fail at times, well, that is part of building the endurance to succeed on your next go round, right?
Yes.
So there's sometimes a blessing inside of obstacles and challenges. It's just a question of whether you're built for it and if you're up for it.
Exactly.
But you do have to manage your mind and your emotions just being set up for the task in the first place.
Yes.
And that's real.
It is. It is. And, it makes me, it's an exercise, right?
Yeah.
So it makes me think about like working out in the gym. I hated and I wasn't very open to like lifting weights. You know this.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And now it's one of my favorite things to do because I learned through the process of challenging myself with that resistance that, hey, I'm stronger than I thought I was. I'm capable of more. And it also put me in tune with the mental and emotional aspects of challenging myself that changed my inner narrative, like what I say
Yeah.
to myself about the resistance that I'm taking on or the resistance that I'm facing. And for me, that just that practical experience translated so deeply in my mental and spiritual and emotional development that I love to lift weights now because it's something that has added so much to me. And it literally has changed my perspective on facing obstacles in life,
Hmm.
you know? So when I meet resistance, I'm no longer afraid of it. I'm
Yeah.
no longer opposed to it.
Yeah.
You know, I am more open to assessing, like, what is this? How can I approach this?
Yeah.
You know, and then taking on the challenge and believing that there is strength to be gained on the other side of this,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, when you talk about using weightlifting as kind of a metaphor to what we're speaking about, you talked about resistance,
Mm-hmm.
and so when I hear resistance, it takes me further into the next level of like opposition, right? But
Right,
there are levels to this,
for
right?
sure.
So as we kind of button up the obstacles things, and then we can spill into the opposition part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think obstacles are something that really test what's in you and show you what you're really made of,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it really separates the weak from the strong,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think everything in life, nature and the way God has designed things, to lay a hold of anything, there is a natural process that incorporates challenges and obstacles because it will separate those who's worthy of obtaining the
Mm-hmm.
particular thing that they seek to obtain.
Yeah.
And it's a matter of perspective.
Yeah.
But the thing that can be frustrating at times is we don't know what form that's going to come in,
Right.
right?
That's true.
And sometimes that comes through just natural circumstances and happenings.
Mm-hmm.
But then sometimes it comes through people. And often, most of these things are through people. Like
Yes.
most things in life, people are a vessel
Yes.
to your obstacle, your opposition, or the opportunity for offense, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
And, but it's you perceiving that beyond the person itself,
Right.
but what the experience is really presenting to you.
Mm-hmm.
It determines what you'll get out of the experience
Right.
and what the experience will show you about yourself,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
In previous conversations, we talked about, overcoming by the blood of the Lamb and the word of your testimony, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know for sure the obstacles and the challenges and the things I've experienced in life that I dared to try to triumph over. Well, every time I triumphed over one level of obstacle,
Mm-hmm.
that became the fuel and the confidence I used for the next one,
Exactly.
right? To say, oh no, I'm built for this. Like
Yes.
nothing's going to stop me
Yes.
from what it is I'm setting out to do,
Right.
right?
For sure.
And but that doesn't sometimes stop the shock value
Right.
of the
Yeah.
moment that you run into it when you just wasn't expecting it,
That's right.
and you have to gather yourself
Mhm.
again and remind yourself, like,
Right.
okay, we will all go through trials and obstacles. It's going to rain on the just and the unjust.
Yes.
And, this just may be a season of rain, but even for the grass and the flowers to grow,
Mhm.
there has to be rain incorporated in there too.
Yeah.
And it's how that rain is put to use
Mhm.
for the ultimate growth of the thing.
Yeah.
And we have to know how to put the obstacles to use,
Yes.
right?
That's so good. And I think the longer you take the journey, the more experience you have that helps you have that mindset to persevere
Yeah.
through those obstacles. And like you said, just again going back to the analogy of, imagining yourself having a Google Maps view of a path.
Mhm.
And then now that you're planted in that path and you can see, oh shoot, there's a mountain here.
Mhm.
There's a valley here. As you progress through and you learn how to navigate these different obstacles that were unexpected, when you get through them and on the other side of them, now you have the history,
Mhm.
the data, the information, the experience. Like you said earlier, when you talked about being becoming a subject matter expert in certain things because you learned all the nuances that are involved. It helps you to take that information and use that as fuel.
Yeah.
Then when you come up against a mountain that's a little bit bigger than what you've experienced before, you still have a framework
Yeah.
of how to approach this. You have the testimony of, okay, I've encountered this before. It may not have been in this way
Or this
or
magnitude.
this magnitude, but I've been through this before.
Yeah, what it does is it adjusts your expectations and your
Yes.
culture
Right.
about what it truly means to progress.
Yeah.
I think business is a great medium and tool to learn this. People think, hey, I'm just going to start a business and just make money and just get to profits and
That's it,
things.
yep.
But someone who's going through business know there's so many nuances inside of business that when you increase in this way, it might require you to decrease in that way and then incrementally come back up and back and forth until you finally get to a particular place, right?
Yeah.
And it's the experience that teaches you say, oh yeah, I need to build within myself the culture and the expectation to give room for the back and the forth and the progressing and digressing and back and forth. Level set that in my expectations and build reserves and all the stuff I need to do
Yeah.
to truly get to a place of progress,
Yeah.
right? And often it's not until you've had the experience will you gain the learnings to refine your culture and your expectations,
Yeah,
right?
that's so true.
So, obstacles,
Yeah.
oppositions. So, now,
Opposition.
oppositions, like I said, are these things in life that oppose you, like actively resist you, achieving and progressing. And my experiences in life has taught me that there's something naturally designed in this world that every great thing has an opposition that exists out there to hinder you from grasping the thing, right? And it's almost like a rite of passage. Like you have to go through these rites of passage and these tests.
Yeah.
And it's until you pass the test of these points of opposition will you have this like divine legal right to grasp this particular thing.
Yeah.
And the principle that I'm talking about is something I feel that I can express through experience, right? It becomes harder to just tell a person, this is this truth, go read this book and it
Right.
says it. No,
Yeah.
but I think there are those that may be listening to us right now that's lived a bit of life and hear what I'm saying and they're like, oh yeah, I'm familiar with that through experience, right? So once again, oppositions are always, well, I started to say they're not fun, but it depends on your personality type. You know, because you got some people who are built for war. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
it becomes a bit of an exhibition to, you know, fight that fight and see what's in you
Yeah.
and deal with oppositions and, you know, triumph over time, and especially if you gain a history of triumphing over opposition and things like that, you know.
Yeah.
And, you know, so like I said, it depends on the personality type, right?
That's true.
But it's not fun. And it takes a definitely a great level of endurance and resilience. It takes to me, a great level of acuity too. You have to be mentally, emotionally, and spiritually acute by being able to pick up and discern what's going on and know what you need to do, see what's coming against you and the angle it's coming from and what you need to do to either be able to stand in the midst of the thing or counter things that are opposing you and to maneuver. And it's quite a bit a game of chess, you know? It's a game of chess.
Or it's a boxing match.
Or it's a boxing match.
Yeah.
So am I going to slug? Am I going to rope a dope?
Right.
Am I going to, you know,
Yeah.
do a lot of counter moves?
right.
You know, am I going to Philly show? Well, what am I going to do,
Yeah.
you know, in this boxing match to in the end win, you know? And it definitely takes strength and endurance. It takes skill, right, to deal with opposition, right?
It really does.
And like I said, it's not fun. But since we're using these examples of like boxing and chess and all that stuff, well, the people who are celebrated are those who've fought against the greatest and who's gone against chess masters,
Yep.
who've, you know, people are celebrated when the person that they fought and finally got that championship from was a contender.
Right.
right?
Exactly.
And so, how do you navigate just pure opposition? And so, let me say this caveat. Now, I do know, depending on our makeup and
Mm-hmm.
depending on our personality, we all have different skills
Mm-hmm.
for combat,
Mm-hmm.
if you will.
We do.
We do. So, how do you navigate and cope with and engage things when you're dealing with clear opposition?
Yeah. For me personally, for my makeup, when you mentioned that, I thought about, everybody has their armor that they're familiar with, right?
Hmm.
Um, and I think each personality, depending on your personality, depending on your temperament, your makeup, your experiences, I think those things inform what tactics or methods you use to respond to opposition, you know?
Yeah.
For me, most of my life, or I'll say life has taught me that one of my greatest weapons against opposition is actually kindness.
Hmm.
Um, there's with my temperament, with my personality, there's a grace for me that um actually kindness does more damage than if I were
Hmm.
to respond with um, offense or anger or um, you know, defensiveness,
Yeah. Or
know.
matching the combativeness that may
Yeah.
be coming towards you.
Right,
Right.
exactly.
Right.
It's just never for me personally served me
Yeah.
to try to match that combativeness that comes towards me.
Hmm.
And I've learned through experience that, oh, okay, my grace, like the grace that's given to me by God, is a little different.
Hmm.
And so I've learned over time that, there's the scripture that talks about our weapons of warfare.
Hmm.
They are not carnal. They're not the things that we come up with in our own strength and our own instincts, but they are spiritual weapons that are mighty to the pulling down of strongholds.
Hmm.
And so I would say that I've learned that, through prayer. Prayer is highly effective in warfare. The
Hmm.
Bible says that the prayers of the righteous avail much.
Yeah.
So there's effectiveness through prayer, communication with God that gives you the insight and strategy to know what to expect and what's coming.
Hmm.
Having intimacy with God, which is what we're always going to emphasize, is the key strategy. But then through that, learning the fruit of the Spirit, the gentleness, the meekness, the kindness, the humility,
Hmm.
the long suffering, the being patient, all those things which we don't want to do. It's not easy to do by any means, but through the empowerment of the Holy Spirit to help us, those weapons are highly effective in dealing with opposition.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're saying with that being the armor and the weapons of war, if you will, takes a great level of inner strength to do.
Right.
It takes a great level of inner self-control.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned long suffering and patience and peace and all that type of thing,
Mm-hmm.
because it, I'm trying to give the benefit of the doubt, but it is easier. I was going to say it seems easier, but it is easier to just do an outward action.
Oh man, it's and more
when,
gratifying.
yeah.
You hit me, I want to hit you
Yeah,
back.
yes,
Yeah.
but to maintain and retain poise
Yeah.
and self-control
Mm-hmm.
and patience
Mm-hmm.
and trust too, because there has to be a great level of inner trust that although something is being done outwardly that opposes me, and even if it's not blatantly outwardly, you can see the tactics. I mean, everything in life has an audit trail and a paper trail and
Mm-hmm.
foot tracks that you can trace and say, oh yeah, I see that,
Mm-hmm.
right? But for you to remain in a place of kind of inner peace and
Mm-hmm.
then trust that by me staying in a place of kindness
Mm-hmm.
and peace and patience and gracefulness and just inner gratitude
Mm-hmm.
too, and with good energy, it's going to work out for me.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, workout has two sides to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's either even when someone or group of people or whatever wants to oppose you,
Mm-hmm.
there could come to a place where, the scripture says that, God will cause even your enemies to be at peace with you,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Or it comes to a place where there's another scripture that says that by walking with God and trusting in Him, He'll bring you to a place where He'll cause your enemies to be your
Footstool.
footstool,
Yeah.
or that He will prepare a table
Yep.
before you in their presence.
Right.
It's a thing to where it's like you don't even have to do anything.
Right.
They don't realize that their actions and their steps and their tactics and strategies of opposition
Mm-hmm.
is only becoming a staircase for you to elevate up to whatever it is that you are called to obtain,
Right.
if it's truly divinely meant for you,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And it takes a great level of inner peace to believe that
It does.
and to trust that and to have faith in that. And that's something that's built experientially.
I was just about to say that comes from experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it makes me think about a time that I had a job that I was working that I unexpectedly lost,
Mhm.
right? And that was something that was an obstacle. It was something that I didn't expect,
Yeah.
and at the time, it definitely felt like something that was in opposition because of what my goals were.
Mhm.
But throughout the entire time, I just felt at peace. So I remember we talked to someone about it, and I remember the person's response was like, "Oh my God, like looking at you, I would never know that that's something you were going through." Like, and going through that experience taught me like, "Oh, I trust God that, okay, at the end of the day, you're going to take care of me. You
Yeah.
bless me with this opportunity. You're going to make sure that you open up a door for me to be able to have provision. Like, you're the one that called me to this space. And if that was for a season in time and this is the way to transition out of it, okay. I can have peace and trust that in the end it's going to be okay. I might not like how it feels.
Yeah.
I might be tempted to be upset, angry, offended, be prideful, and all the things. But I just remember, even up until my last day, like, matter of fact, the very last day at the job, we had a party. It was like we had a party, a luncheon where everybody, like, we just celebrated. Like,
Mhm.
it turned into a celebration of it being my last day at that role,
Mhm.
and was able to leave intact
Yeah,
and gracefully with peace,
your dignity.
with dignity, right? And I didn't
Mhm.
have to be angry or anything like that.
Yeah.
And I ended up finding out later that it was a blessing to had even had kind of the time and space to prepare, like to know in advance, like, okay, I got about 2 weeks before this transition is going to happen, and not everybody gets that opportunity.
Yeah.
Some people, might go into their job expecting things to be normal, and then all of a sudden, that very moment, they realize, like, today is my last day.
Yeah, they're walking out with boxes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And so that experience taught me a lot
Yeah.
about dealing with obstacles and really leaning into and trusting God. Like, all right, God, I don't like how this is going. This doesn't feel good. It's not a story that I would necessarily be proud of or want to
Mhm.
tell, but at the end of the day, you're in it.
Yeah, what's interesting? It sounds like through your life experiences, you've built up a muscle. Because I think all these things are muscles.
Yeah.
Muscles are not just physical; they're emotional muscles, mental muscles, spiritual
Mhm.
muscles. So you've developed this muscle,
Mhm.
but there may be other people who've developed other muscles. So it may not come natural to them to
Yeah.
say, "Oh, you're punching me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to punch back." There are some people who can punch back very well,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And so it takes a bit of an adjustment
Mm-hmm.
for them to kind of lean in to say, "Oh no, I'm not going to use what might naturally be my skill to
Mm-hmm.
combat and fight back and
Mhm.
punch back and do all the things.
Mhm.
I'm going to try this path of just not using the weapons of my own warfare and
Right.
my own tactics, but really trusting God, right?
Mhm.
And that within itself cultivates your relationship with God, because it's a very intimate, fragile place to be to test. Well, will God, if I do nothing, will He protect me even in the midst of it?
Yeah.
And protection isn't always giving you what it is you
You
desire.
want, right.
It's causing that circumstance to work out for your benefit and good, no matter which path it goes down.
Right.
Now, once again, as we said, our compass is God. Our pursuit is a relationship with Him and living and abiding by His principles and coming to know Him. And not only coming to know Him, but Him knowing us and Him making Himself revealed and present and demonstrated throughout our lives, right? Even in these type of matters.
Yeah.
So what we believe is that, there's no force that can really oppose us
Right.
unless either it's God's will for this force to be present and impactful from an opposition perspective. But we believe that if God allows that, well, there's some purpose in it.
That's right.
He's either trying to refine us in our character or refine who we are and teach us something and bring us to a greater understanding. Or maybe it's Him trying to let us know that there's a particular space and place that really is not for us, right? Or if it's not one of those two, the only way something can effectively oppose us is if we've given room to it in some way. So that means we're out of alignment with what God may desire from us. And this is an indicator for us to locate where we're out of alignment. Elsewise, it would have to then result in, well, this opposition is going to have to become a footstool for us, meaning something that becomes instrumental to help to our elevation. Or this same opposition is going to look up and see me dining at a feast of blessings right before them, right?
Yeah.
And it's the history and testimony of our experiences that has proven that to be true, but it's only based on daring and trusting to go through the path and not lean on what might be some of our natural inclinations. And I'll admit, my inclinations are a little different than yours, right? But it's going through those experiences and trusting enough to say, oh, I believe this will work out to my good as long as I'm in alignment, with He who I put all my trust in and He who is ruler of the universe and the world, right?
Yeah.
That type of thing. And so the experience has educations in it, right?
It does.
And one of the educations that I've gained is every great story we go to see in the movies that reveals a champion, a superhero, even every emotional triumph had some relational breakdown and scandal that suddenly turned into the biggest love story comeback of all times that we can cry over, right?
Yeah.
It has opposition in it. Great stories have opposition in it so that there can be a climax and an arc and then an ultimate resolution, right? And so it's us embracing the fact that there's a necessity of opposition.
Yes.
Because I also think that, once again, every great thing that exists in the world is not just out there in the world free, ready for the taking. I feel that every great thing that exists in the world is already being preoccupied by something. And for you to go obtain it, you're going to have to come through the gate of some opposition to obtain whatever it is that may be divinely, rightfully yours, right? So you do have to build the mental fortitude, the strategies, the inner strength, and the tactics and just the methods and the culture to be able to navigate opposition, right?
Absolutely.
Let me say one more bold statement. I mean, sometimes opposition is more of your friend than friends.
Yes.
Because opposition reveals your greatness at times more than friends. Sometimes friends will push you more towards your comfort.
That's right.
But opposition can bring the greatness out of you. When people get in a moment to where their adrenaline is spiked because of opposition, well, fight or flight creates this opposition or creates this adrenaline that your muscles get inflated. Your blood pumps more, your nostrils and your lungs inflate so you can breathe in more oxygen. You get in a place where you can do things at a higher level than you could when you were at a state of rest and a state of peace, right? And so it reveals capabilities in you that you did not know you had in you.
Right.
And so I think when you think of whether it's sports or the military and things like that, there's even social and civic organizational things that they synthetically create opposition
Yeah.
in order to build your emotional, spiritual, or physical muscles to be able to deal with real life things, right? And so there's a power that opposition has in it to
Absolutely.
grow you
Yeah.
and strengthen you and reveal your greatness,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So my perspective about opposition has changed over the years,
Mine too.
and I've come to look at opposition as my friend.
Yeah.
And sometimes I can admit I enjoy it a little too much,
Yeah.
right?
I was gonna say, well, both are really necessary, right? Because
Yeah.
I shared some things about my weapons, the grace that I have on my life, things I've learned through my experiences. But I think you also have to be able to be strong enough to stand, because my grace and my approach for much of my life had been to be comfortable and resist opposition, like not put myself in positions or want to face opposition, even if I'm dealing with it, right?
Yeah.
And, I have learned over the years to appreciate opposition because of the growth. So it kind of goes back to what we were talking about with weightlifting. It's the resistance that I realized, like, oh, had it not been for going through something that I considered to be a negative thing, like being let go from a job, if I hadn't gone through that experience, it would not have added to me, or maybe I wouldn't have learned about myself that I actually do have faith in God. Like, I actually do trust God that He's gonna look out for me and take care of me.
Yeah.
I actually don't have to bad talk anybody. I don't have to be negative in my and like throw shade on people because I'm unhappy about something that's happening that I feel is unfair. I don't have to uncover people.
Right.
I don't have to be what's the word, petty.
Yeah.
I don't have to be vengeful or any of that.
Resentful.
I
Yeah.
can
Vindictive.
I can maintain purity of heart. I can maintain dignity. I can maintain poise.
Right.
And be and character and like be the person that I really like desire to be.
Yeah. And be authentic to yourself. Because
Yeah.
let me tell you another thing it teaches you too. When you go the full mile of people doing the things that they feel that they can do to you within their power, and you go through that full experience, well, what it does, if you go through that process properly, it also makes you realize you don't have to fear what people can do to you.
That's right.
Because when you've had the experience where people did all that they thought they could do, and in the end it still worked out for you, right? You then can stand in the authenticity of who you really are.
Right.
Because oftentimes when people have great levels of fear for people and what people can do, while they're in the midst of the threat of what people can do, people compromise themselves
Yes.
and begin to really waffle and bend on who they really authentically are, or where they really authentically stand because they're afraid of what can be done to them, right?
Yeah.
But when you've walked through that experience, if you walk through it properly, it can eliminate the fear,
Yeah.
and that doesn't mean you become just reckless,
Right.
Now, some
Yeah.
people are more reckless than others, right? But that doesn't mean you just become reckless,
Right.
but it can help you to have balance, to where you can be more authentic and, because you're not driven and ruled by fear as well, right?
Yeah. No, I think that's the biggest thing. And I think that's the power that we maintain inside of the opposition, or while we're enduring opposition. I think that's why, scripture even tells us to rejoice when we go through various trials because of what it produces in us, that perseverance, the endurance, right?
Yeah. It said the trying of your faith, work of patience, work of this perfect work and all that, and it brings you to inspect it in, all that stuff, yeah.
Exactly. All those things. So it produces something that is that character, that integrity, that, the thing that's fortified internally, mentally, spiritually, the things that you can't really see, like the intangible things.
It's interesting, too, that I just want to say because it's on my brain. For something to be true, you do need the presence of contrast. So, for example, peace isn't really peace when everything is peaceful.
Right.
Peace is peace when everything is chaotic and you can stand in the middle of it and still have peace.
Yep.
That's when you know for sure you have peace, right?
That's
You know,
exactly right.
love isn't really love until a person is unlovable, right? And they're giving you every reason not to love them.
Right.
And you show that, man, I can be committed and
Yes.
love this person and make a sacrifice, right? If everything is going great, of course, we're in love, or you
Yeah.
love a person.
Yep.
You know, it's so funny. I'm gonna do a little sidebar. We've been, doing some mindless TV watching, and there's a particular show that we've been watching. When I want to decompress my brain,
Yeah.
I'll watch this little show before I go to sleep.
This show popped in my brain with something you said earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in this show, it's this matchmaking thing, but I
Mm-hmm.
pointed out to my wife that I could hear a consistent narrative of, oh, I love this person because how this person makes me feel, or how this person makes me feel about myself, or how this person has made my experience in this space, feel,
Right.
or what the experience has been like with them.
Right.
But often I'm not hearing, I love this person because of who this person is, or this person's character, or this
Right.
person's purpose, or this person's vision, or where they're headed. So it becomes kind of a warped version of what love really is. It's all about me, and how I feel, and how you make me feel, how you make me feel about myself, and all these things, right? So I only said all that to say, well, of course you can feel like we're in love if I put you in this love bombed euphoric space of telling you all the things that you want to hear, and
Yeah.
doing all the things and sweet nothings that you think you deserve. But love is truly tried when you're dealing with the opposite. Right?
That's true.
So that's just my little
No, that's
sidebar.
absolutely true. I mean, that's
Yeah.
even biblical. Like Jesus even talks about how you're supposed to love your enemies. He's basically like, if you love those who love you, like, what reward is there for that?
Right.
There is none, because that's easy to do.
Right.
We are commanded to love our enemies.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for that.
Yeah, it strengthens the muscle of your love
Right.
when you have a reason not to love,
Right.
but you love anyway.
Absolutely.
Right. And then, that's a good springboard, because often offense comes when there was first love there.
Yes.
When there was
Oh,
first
man.
openness, and there was first kind of an expectation because of the level of intimacy and your guard being down, or, an expectation there. And then something comes
Right.
and it's like a great offense, right? And offense is the real kind of like dangerous one, because
Yeah.
along the way of our conversation, we've really been talking about like progress, right? But I think offense is a tricky one in the context of progress.
I agree.
Right? I feel like you have to be very careful about offense, because people may legitimately do things that are offensive. But what I've kind of found is that once you receive that offense, you're the person that gets locked up and gets hindered and gets like stopped in your tracks, right? And the offense a lot of times transcends that person. It's an event that's occurring that has spiritual implications, and it has, this universal implication, and it's happening for a reason. And you have to kind of see past the person and see like, oh, I see why this is coming. This is coming. This person is just a vessel for this to happen through. But this is coming to like hinder my progress and like lock me up in a space and a place and impede me continuing to elevate and progress and go further and further and higher in like my purpose and my progress and what I'm purposed to do.
Yeah.
So you really have to be careful about how you navigate offense.
You do.
Right?
You do. That's the thing that is challenging with offense. And it's the snares that can be attached to it.
Yeah.
The distractions that can be attached to it.
Right.
So going back to our, analogy of going down a path, offense, in my opinion, is the thing that if you let it can take you off track. It can take you way off your path.
Yeah. I want you to keep going. I think one of the biggest reasons it takes you off your path is because imagine if you're driving and you keep looking in the rearview mirror while you're trying to drive straight.
Mm-hmm.
Because to me, offense locks you in a moment in the
Mm-hmm.
past with a person,
Mm-hmm.
and it keeps you looking back,
Mm-hmm.
and you're navigating forward
Mm-hmm.
through looking backwards.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
At what was done to you, how it was done.
Right.
It might even make you make these vows and these, things that you will swear in your heart, like,
Right.
I'll never let that person or any other person do X, Y, and Z to me. And you're holding on to something from the past,
Yes.
and it makes your path forward a little foggy
Right.
or not as clear to navigate, even when you don't know it.
Right.
And imagine if you're driving once again and you start looking in the rearview mirror,
Mm-hmm.
it's probably going to not only make you go in danger to wreck,
Mm-hmm.
but I think our natural bodies know to ease up on the accelerator.
Yeah, you're gonna slow down.
We're going to slow
Yeah.
down a bit because we're looking up in
Mm-hmm.
the, rearview mirror
Yeah.
for a long period of time. We don't
Mm-hmm.
want to quickly hit something that would be in front of us because
Right.
we know we're looking backward.
Right.
Well, I think that's what happens to us in our emotions
Mm-hmm.
and spiritually, because we're so engrossed with something that's behind us.
For sure.
It slows up our forward acceleration
Yeah.
towards the things that we're supposed to be progressing towards in our mission, right?
Yep.
And it's whether we know that or not.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you're really talking about unforgiveness, that
Yeah.
can come through offense. It's the thing that keeps us looking backwards is the fact that we hadn't let go of the hurt or the pain that was inflicted through the offense,
Yeah.
and that unforgiveness and that bitterness are the things that are really poison,
Yeah, it poisons you.
Yeah.
And even if you progress towards like your purpose and your mission, just bringing that poison with you
Mm-hmm.
can taint what you
Mm-hmm.
were set out to become and to be
Mm-hmm.
and to manifest and all that type of stuff, because
Mhm.
it can alter your culture
Right.
and the spirit of what you're doing
Right.
and all of that type of thing. It can poison the well,
Mhm.
if you will,
Mhm.
of those who will connect to your future
Right.
because of something that happened in the past,
Exactly.
and we have to be so careful about that.
Mm-hmm.
And it happens so quickly.
Mhm.
And
And
once again,
subtly.
that's what I was about to say.
Yeah.
Subtly and suddenly.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Oh man, it's just the worst once you're just blindsided
Yep.
with something that you just didn't see coming.
Mm-hmm.
And so now you're offended.
Right.
And it is challenging to let go of offense, especially if it
Very
comes
hard.
from an intimate place
Yeah.
or something that, even if it wasn't intimate, but something we had a lot of hope for,
Right.
or
Disappointment.
yeah,
Yeah.
disappointment. Like
Mhm.
disappointment is it's a deep thing
It is.
that can really affect us.
Mhm.
And so we have to know how to manage disappointment
Mhm.
and just release it,
Man.
right?
It's so detrimental and so significant because you can make a whole life, build a whole life, spend years and years of your journey, going down your path, building and maneuvering in ways that are impacted by offenses that were rooted in experiences from years ago.
Yeah.
And before you know it, all kinds of time, relationships, resources, and everything have been impacted by that experience.
Yeah.
And like you said, it taints and kind of contaminates, really kind of the like the I would say the just you getting to the most optimal place.
Yeah.
And unfortunately can also cause you to further become deeply rooted in pride
Oh,
and
yeah.
like self-preservation
Mhm.
and all these things. I
Because
mean,
listen, you build up systems
yes,
psychologically, emotionally, even
Yes.
tangibly,
right,
to protect yourself
exactly,
because of the wound from the offense in the
That's right.
past and the fears of
Yes.
experiencing it again.
Yep.
I even realized in my personal experiences how it can lock you up on the inside too.
Mm-hmm.
I went through some things over a series of some years, and I didn't realize it, but I knew I was experiencing just some of my creativity,
Mm-hmm.
and meaning my literal creativity, but also I'm a very intuitive person.
Mm-hmm.
So it locked up that intuitive nuance of me,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't really know why.
Mhm.
And one day I just had an epiphany that I had kind of made an internal vow to
Mhm.
myself
Mm-hmm.
based off of an experience that
Mhm.
I had in the
Mhm.
past.
Mhm.
And that dawned on me
Mhm.
one day, like, oh man, I made a vow to myself, like I'll never, this or
Mhm.
that. And so I had to have a moment of saying, to myself, man, I released
Right.
that
Mhm.
sentiment
Yeah.
and that internal vow or
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
and I had to let that go. And
Mhm.
it's like once I let that go, immediately, like my creativity started
Mhm.
coming back clearer, my intuition,
Mhm.
just that came back just much stronger and things
Mhm.
like that. But it was after like months and like a year or so of just being locked up
Yeah.
in certain ways.
Yeah.
And it's once that dawned on me, I
Mhm.
said, oh man, I have to release that.
Yeah.
Once I did, it's like, oh, my creativity and
Right.
just that intuitive nature just came back so
Yeah.
strong,
Yeah.
that type of thing.
Yeah.
And it made me realize how that had me imprisoned and had me
Mhm.
locked up on the inside,
Mhm.
that type of thing.
Yeah.
And so, it made me more watchful and vigilant
Mhm.
about watching out for offenses.
Mhm.
And you don't often see them coming,
Mm-mm.
but you can decide how you're going to respond to them when they do,
Right.
that type of thing.
Yeah.
And, none of us are perfect, so we're always managing through it,
For
but you
sure.
gain knowledge and tools and skills on how to kind of navigate that
Mhm.
so that it doesn't lock you up and hinder you from your progress and your
Right.
mission and your purpose and all of that.
Yeah. I mean, offenses come all the time. I think I agree with you that the more intimate the relationship, the more difficult it is to overcome offense. But I mean, you can be offended scrolling on social media.
Oh yeah. Listen, I think the algorithm is structured for you to be offended all the time.
Yeah.
Channel 2 Action News is structured
just
for
like
you to be
offense after
offended.
offense
Yes,
after
for
offense.
sure. For sure.
So it's like, man, that's such a big way that I think humanity as a whole is just constantly bombarded.
Yeah.
You
And
know.
offense gets more news and more traction and more attention, right?
Oh yeah, because
You know?
it's and a lot of it is about provoking an emotion from you in the first place.
Yeah, provoking emotion, provoking you to action.
Yeah.
It's either trying to provoke you to an immediate action or it's a gradual
Right.
buildup of offense,
Mhm.
and inciting until you get to action, right?
Exactly.
And I've learned that you have to be vigilant about it and guard the things that come into your ears and your eyes,
have
and
to.
the information you receive and the offenses that you receive that's out in the world, and you have to make a decision.
Yeah, you definitely do.
Because it's a weapon that can be used against you
Mhm.
when the world can identify what can easily offend you.
Mhm.
It
Absolutely.
can keep you from spaces, places, tables,
Mhm.
opportunities,
Yep.
all types of things,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
it's something that you have to learn how to manage and not be dominated by,
Yes,
for sure.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I think you said something that's really important and key though, because, talking about all of these things can be a little heavy. It can be a little daunting, right?
Yeah.
But I love that you shared your experience about having had experiences realizing your vows you made to yourself and the impact that had on you.
Mm-hmm.
But you came to a moment of realizing, oh, okay, this thing has affected me this way in my soul.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to kind of undo the vow that I made, and you saw results from that. And I kind of wanted to highlight that for anyone listening, because all of these things we're navigating through in life, and we're gonna fall, we're gonna trip up, we're not gonna do these things perfectly. But the key, I think, in all of this is to learn along the way, like really learn about yourself, learn about God, learn about where your values are, and also learn that you can undo some of the mistakes that were made, and how to recognize opportunities to make different decisions
Right.
to progress you along your journey.
Yeah, and I think that all culminates into the why, right?
Yeah.
Why do obstacles come?
Yeah.
Why does opposition come?
Mm-hmm.
Why does offense come? Right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the truth is we don't always know why it
Mm-mm.
came in the specific moment,
Mm-hmm.
but as an aggregate, I think I've learned that a lot of times obstacles, oppositions, and offense come because it's there to make you stronger.
Yeah.
It's there to refine you in your character
Mm-hmm.
and your knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
in your maturity,
Mm-hmm.
in your leadership, because through that growth, you become a subject matter expert in what it's like to navigate a certain terrain. And you then can lead others through that
Yes.
and give them the tools to be able to navigate that terrain as well.
Yes.
It grows you in your exposure and your perspective about life and things,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
It shows you what you're made of
Right.
and shows you what type of resilience you actually have,
Mm-hmm.
what type of combat skills you have.
Yeah.
Like, it shows you what your weapons of war is, whether
Mm-hmm.
those weapons are grace and peace or good right hook.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It shows you
Yep.
really what you're made of. It shows you what God is made of, and
Mm-hmm.
if he's really for you.
Mm-hmm.
There's scripture that says if God is for you, who can be against you?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you need someone to be against you to know whether God is for you,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And you need the benefit of that lesson.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes you don't know that in the moment until you go through it. And it's once he shows he's for you, you get to know, oh, God is for me,
Yep.
even when I'm going through this thing where someone was clearly against me,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then offenses and things like that test your love and
Yeah.
test your patience and your long suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And in all these things refine your character. But also, a lot of times these oppositions and offenses are the gateway to your purpose.
Yes.
And the gateway to tables and seats that you're called to sit at,
Mm-hmm.
and tables that you're called to eat at.
Mm-hmm.
And you just needed the springboard
Mm-hmm.
of that experience to go to a higher level.
Mm-hmm.
And it's often not until you go through it that you can come to that realization,
Right.
right?
Absolutely. I think I really like that you emphasize that basically once you have been strengthened, to go back and strengthen your brothers,
Yeah.
to go back and help someone else. You mentioned giving them the tools that will help someone else along their journey. I think that's a big part of it, you know, and part of why we have to persevere
Yeah.
through. And then you said something else that triggered a thought, but now it's trying to leave me. But ultimately, I was thinking that, the race is not given to the swift. It's not given to the strong. Although we gain strength along the way, it's given to the one who endures to the end, right? And so the main thing is to not give up, not to give up on yourself, not to give up on God, and to just keep going, and just learn the lessons along the way.
Yeah. In the spirit of strengthening a brother, I said when we began this podcast that it feels like there may be many who are just going through a season that it just feels like there's some obstacles and there's some opposition. There's even some offenses, and it's just a trying time, period. And we want to encourage you that, first of all, you're not alone.
Right.
There are many others who's standing right there with you, and they're going through the time of just having to be resilient. And there's a scripture that says, once you've done all there is to stand, you just stand, right? There are many others that are right there with you, just standing in the midst of the obstacles, the opposition, and even offenses. But these things try you to make you pure gold, right? And we want to encourage you to keep pressing and to keep having faith. Keep standing in your integrity, right? Keep learning about yourself. Keep growing in, your maturity and all the other mental, spiritual, and emotional muscles that God may be trying to help you be refined in and grow stronger in as you deal with the resistance and the oppositions. But you have it in you to lift that weight and to lift that burden. And this is an encouragement to you, right? We're right there with you.
Yep.
And we'll be here with you every week. Right. Hey, listen, we hope that this conversation, as always, was an encouragement and something that you gained value from. And we want to hear your feedback and your testimonies. I mean, even if there's something that you may be navigating and walking through, you can share that with us. We want to be a community that is transparent and vulnerable with each other, and we share notes with each other about what we're going through, and we undergird one another, encourage one another. We want this to be that type of community and that type of exchange. So you can hit us up and share what you may be walking through, and we want to be a friend in the midst of what may be trying times, right? You can even share with us things that if you need someone to pray for you and to just send great wishes and hope in your direction, you can share that with us too, and we'll be glad to do so.
For sure.
Parafam, this has been a good one as always. We love connecting with you guys. We're glad to be back this week. And is there any parting words you have for the people, my love?
I think you've said it all. You think you've said it all. You said it so well.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, you make me feel like, make me feel special. Like I'm doing a great job.
You are.
Yeah.
You're doing a great job.
All right, guys, we're going to see you. We love you. Best wishes. Keep fighting the good fight. Grace and peace. We're going to see you next time.
Bye, y'all.